Well, see, Andrew, in life, I learn best when I make a mistake. So I just make a lot of mistakes and then I learn from them, man. So that's been the best way. So, I was that guy who I had a nice house, I always had the nicest truck. All I ever cared about was what's the payment. I didn't care about how long. I just want to know what the payment was. Credit cards, just, hey, there was no delayed gratification because doggone it, I deserve it now. I had that mindset. I deserve it now. I'm just going to go buy it. I don't really care if I can afford it. I'm just going to buy it and I'll figure it out later because, we can all make minimum payments and we just, hey, just like everybody else, I'm just keeping up with the Joneses. And I didn't ever realize that the Joneses were broke. Like nobody ever told me that. Right. So I was like, okay, so it's just through bad mistakes, man. And, rolling negative debt into negative debt and just keeping on or negative equity rather than just like with vehicles. It was a cycle for me. I would go through cars just like people change socks, man. And it was just, all I cared about was, what the payment was. So, I really just kind of hit a wall and understand, what? I got to make some changes. This is ridiculous. I was getting close to 40 years old. You had some nice things, but the bank had the nice things. I had all these notes out. And from an investment standpoint, yeah, I wanted to invest and I'm doing things in my 401k and things like that. But I didn't have any money, even if I wanted to invest to get started because it was all going out the window from debt payments, man. So that was just dragging me down. And I talk to so many people on a regular basis. This is where many people are. This is where a lot of Americans are. I mean, many Americans can't pay a $400 emergency. I mean, you start thinking about that, like really $400, you can't pay that. And when you start telling people, man, you need to have a 6-month or 3-month emergency fund, a cash reserve, a liquid cash reserve, they look at you like you got 3 heads. And it's just like, no, bro, like this is real stuff. Like this is people, you can be a good steward and do this because, it's not if something's going to happen, it's when. I mean, things are going to happen. Appliances break, cars break, kids get sick, all these things hit us. And if we're not ready from a financial standpoint to manage that, it just compounds that stress. And if you look at just marriage in general, outside of infidelity, finance is the number one driver of divorce. And that's hitting so many people. So I just have such a passion for this because I think if we can help guys in particular, keep saying guys because that's who I serve is men, is try to help them be better stewards and leaders. Man, that's just going to impact families and legacies and the next generation and what we teach our kids. And it has such a ripple effect.
So for you, you mentioned stewardship several times. So what does that look like for you and how does that help you invest?
Yeah, I mean, for me, think about stewardship. I break it down into 4 categories. And this is what I try to teach guys and to understand, look, because when you get to thinking about budgeting and then it can get really confusing. I'm a super simple guy. I like to make things as simple as possible. So 4 areas. So it's giving, saving, spending, and investing. I said, okay, if you can just look at your money that you have coming in every month, whatever that is, if you're blessed with, $1,000 or $10,000 a month, it doesn't matter, or $100,000 a month. If you can just take these 4 buckets and assign some percentages to them, okay? Now I always start with giving because that's a core principle for me. Not be for your listeners, but for me, I start with giving. I think that's the number 1 bucket. That shouldn't be the last one. That should be the first one. And you just assign a percentage to that. And maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 50. I know people who is up as high as 50% of this. They just want to give it away, right? They want to serve and help others. And then saving. You need to have a saving goal. And there needs to just tie a percentage to that. I don't go with dollars as much as I do percentages. I think it makes it easier, particularly because, money comes in, it comes out. Sometimes bonuses come in. Maybe you get an extra check or whatever, something just happened and you get a blessing and you don't know what to do with it. If you have percentages, it just makes it so much simpler because I do have that engineering background and I just like numbers. And to me, it just makes it, a much easier way to move forward. Then you have your spending, and that's the budget, which I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you have investing. And for each one of those, assign a percentage that works for you. Now, you need to assign those percentages. You got to know your numbers. And this is where I see, Andrew and Dave, mostly people don't know their numbers, man. They don't take the time to understand what's going in, what's coming into their account, what's going out, and everything in between. There's a lot of transactions. There's a lot of things that happen that impact our overall portfolio, but you need to know that number at all times. And from just a basic stewardship standpoint, all a steward is someone who manages somebody else's stuff. That's it. It's just a manager of someone else's stuff. And so I always envision myself as I'm just managing of what I've been blessed. That's it. And I'm just managing that the best way around those 4 buckets. And you set those percentages, and the budget will help you set those percentages. And from then, again, it becomes really simple when that money comes in. Okay, here's how we're going to split that up. 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever that may be, right? And you just break it out right there. And then it also takes a lot of the emotion out of it, man. So say it's a big check that comes in. All of a sudden, if you have a systematic process in place to manage that, there's no emotion to it. You just know that this is what you're going to do. As much as you can do that stuff automatically too. I know a lot of people who make that giving stuff where it's just automatic deductions. You don't have to think about it. And that's when you start really seeing the benefits of stewardship and start reaping that. So that's a basic overview of the 4 tenets that I try to help people think through.